This week's edition of Church Media Design TV is sponsored by WorshipHouseMedia.com and DansInkandToner.com. Welcome to another edition of Church Media Design TV, tips, tricks, and how-to for you, the Church Media Designer. Well, I'm your host, Brad Zimmerman, and with me is the, Twitter-using three wise men and Jesus. Yes, you have it right. They're on Twitter, and it's at Dwight Schrute, at Colonel Sanders, at Little Whitey, and of course, at Jesus Christ, the Son of the Lord Most High. Now, isn't that a long Twitter username? Yes. I'm pretty sure it's real too. And I'm going to hell for lying. But anyway, let's get into this week's episode. We're going to be talking about how to extract things out of Photoshop images or out of images in general via Photoshop so that you can take people out of photos and slap them into other photos or objects, the whole 9 yards. So we're going to show a few different ways how to select objects, as well as some great inspiration and a fall freebie for you. So if the three wise men and Jesus are done twittering, let's get into it. Well, this week we're going to be talking about how to select things out of your images. Now, we've kind of touched on this a couple times when we've done Photoshop tutorials in the past, but I really wanted to make sure you guys knew the variety of different ways that you can actually do this. So we're going to take a look at a couple different photos and talk about the different ways you would go about selecting images and ripping them out of photos. Because a lot of times you'll want to do mashups of multiple photos, or maybe you want to blur out a background or place type behind something. There's a million different reasons why you would want to do this. I'm going to show you a few different ways that you can do this. So the first thing we're going to look at here is we have a little picture of this Audi R8, and this car is, as you can see, it has really clean flowing lines to it. There's not a whole lot of weird details to it. It's a pretty easy thing to extract out, minus the shadow underneath. But we can kind of get around that. So for this particular situation, what we would want to use is the pen tool. Now, I've talked a lot about the pen tool in the past, and I'm going to continue talking about it today because it's really powerful. So we're just going to zoom in here. I'm holding spacebar and the control key, and we're going to just zoom in and find a good starting point here. So we'll start right here at the top part of this tire, and then we're just going to click and drag and start doing our points. And of course, we'll just use the spacebar to move around on the image, and we're going to just go through and alter this along the way. Now, if you, like you can see, I'm changing the handle here by holding the control key when I'm on the pen tool, and then I can just hit my spacebar to bring up my hand tool and just keep moving. But as you can see, because of the flowing lines on this car, I can pretty quickly start to pull off a nice little line around here, and I just have to adjust a few things along the way, but you'll see how it starts to shape up real fast. And sometimes you get crazy stuff where it pulls you off the screen and you need to zoom out. But we'll fast forward to the future and I'll show you the end product of this. As you can see, I've gone through and you can see my path that I've made all the way around here. Now, I skipped the shadow underneath because we can select that another way, or we could kind of draw that in later. And so what we'll do now that we have this selected is we'll go over to Paths, and we'll go down and we'll grab the dotted line which turns the path into a selection. And then we're going to just hit our layer mask button and make a layer mask. And now we've extracted that car out of there. Looks really nice. It's totally out of the scene. But if we wanted to, what I like to do sometimes is go in and we will turn off the layer mask for this bottom layer and delete the layer mask. Delete. So now we can see that bottom area. And we're going to just draw a quick little... we'll grab our polygon lasso tool and we'll just draw a quick path around this area of the shadow. And we'll do, just a couple points there and down, over, and back again. Okay, so now that we have that area selected, we'll go up to Select, we'll go down to Modify, and we'll go to Feather. And we'll feather this 10 pixels. So now we'll go back to our first layer and make sure our mask is selected on that layer, and we'll grab our paintbrush and make sure our color is set to white. And now we're just going to paint in some of that shadow that was underneath the car. And we can decide how thick we want it to be by how many times we go over it. But all we're doing is painting back in some of that photo, that original photo. And it doesn't get too much of the gravel in there, but helps it have a little bit more real feel that it originally had. So now you could take this and throw in, maybe we would just throw in some random gradient solid of, this is going to look really ugly. Bam! I mean, Photoshop masters here, people. That is awesome. Or it's the ugliest thing I've ever seen, but you get the idea. That's an easy way to extract out of that image. And you can refine that, but that's just a quick, easy way of doing that. Now next we'll skip ahead and we'll talk about the magic wand tool. In this photo of this monkey, I was going to show a photo of a dog, but I said, you know what? I like monkeys, so I'm going to show a monkey. And here's some random monkey on a rope. And a lot of people, when they think of selections, they're going to randomly go to the magic wand tool first. Well, they are usually wrong, because the magic wand tool it works okay, but it's not the greatest. And here it's doing a pretty good job, and we could, you know, make this background and we could hit our layer mask tool and it would cut it out pretty well and that kind of stuff. Now an easier way of doing it, so we don't have to go through and click on all these different areas and double click our selections and all that stuff, we're going to go up to layer, or we're going to go to select and then down to color range. And this is going to give a color range picker. And so we're going to grab our color range, we're going to grab one of these blues. And then we can take our fuzziness slider and pull that up or down. And so we could pull it up to about there where we still have a little bit of gray. Grab the plus eyedropper icon, and then we can just add in a couple of these other areas. And now you can see we have a good tonal range, and we can actually bring this back down, or maybe we want to bring it up a little bit more of our fuzziness or our featheredness of that mask. And now we can do Control-Shift-I, which inverses our selection, and then we'll again hit that layer mask button, and bam, our background is gone. And as you can see, it's feathered it out nice. There's not even any of the color left in there, and this will very easily, we could just go in here and we can, let's maybe make our own, we'll make our own little gradient sky that's a lot more perfect than the gradient sky that's currently there. So we'll grab, you know, these two blues and then go to our gradient tool again, grab our foreground and background, hit OK. And we just made the monkey blue because I didn't do a new layer. But as you can see, you can go in, throw a new background in there, and it looks really nice. And you can throw typography behind there. So if we wanted to put the word monkey really big in whatever font we have there, do Control-T, scale this guy up real large, and then throw it behind there. You can see how it perfectly sits behind it. We could color that text white real quick with a color overlay. And you can see it looks a lot nicer. So this is a real easy way to do announcement slides and that kind of stuff, is to pull that stuff out. Now the reason we use the color range is because we had so much blue in the image that we wanted to get rid of. So you got to think about what tool is right for the right situation. So the next thing we're going to try to do is something that's a lot harder than all of these other things. And this is dealing with hair, especially human hair and girls' hair. Long hair that's got a lot of detail in it, trying to rip out the background of that. And I picked this example here where we have this girl jumping through the air and it's kind of cloudy. It's not too, the background's not very solid, so you can't do a color range. And since it's clouds, there's not really color there, it's just black and white. So you can't really rely on that. You wouldn't want to use the pen tool because, well, you can use it for part of it, but when you get to hair, you can't select hair with a pen tool, so that's not really going to solve your issue. And you could try a feathered brush, but most likely it's going to be a big pain, and you would need a Wacom tablet to make it look nice, and you run into all sorts of different issues. So we're actually going to add together a bunch of different things to make this work right. So our first step is we're going to jump over to our channels palette, and we're going to start looking through the channels, and this shows the RGB, the red, green, and blue channels. We're going to look, and it will show you a black and white image of all of the different colors in this. And we're going to look for the one that has the most contrast in her hair. So we're going to go for this blue channel. Looks pretty nice to me right now. And we're going to drag that down to the new button, and we're going to create a new channel, a new copy of that blue channel. And then what we're going to do is you can run effects on this just like you can in your regular layers palette. So we're going to do Control L, which pulls up our layers or levels dialog, and we're just going to mess around with the levels a little bit. And we're going to zoom in on the hair here, and we're going to get this hair looking really nice. So we're going to watch all the detail in the hair, and what we want to do is we want to blow out the white background behind it, and we want to leave in some of the grayscale detail. That's okay in the hair. And then we want to make it as dark as possible on the inside. So we'll just kind of pull this in a little bit until we're seeing as much detail as we want, and that's looking pretty nice. It really does look good, and so we'll hit OK. Now the next step is you can see there's a lot of gray tones in here around the outside of her, and the easiest way to get rid of this is to actually go and mess with your dodge tool. And we're going to mess with the highlights range. So we're going to just scale our brush down, if it will let us. I don't know why it's not letting me. Come on now. There we go. We're going to scale down our brush, and we'll do like 60, and it's kind of feathered. And we'll do our exposure down to about 50%. Will probably be pretty good on this, or 48, whatever. Anyway, so what we're going to do is we're going to go along the edge here, and you can see it's leaving the dark areas but getting rid of and blowing out all of the white range. So what it's doing is it's just making those whites whiter where we want them whiter. And so we'll just go around the entire outside of this image, and there'll be a few areas that we'll skip and we'll steer clear of. But for the most part, we can go through, and maybe some of these really detailed areas we don't want to like throw down a huge brush. We just want to use a smaller brush so we don't lose too much of the detail in here. But overall, that's looking pretty good. So now we're just going to continue and outline the rest of her body and blow out all of these ranges and make those whites a lot whiter around here. So as you can see, I'm just kind of following around the outside, and you can see how it's getting rid of some artifacting and some different things around the outside here. Now what you just saw there is I went around the shoe and I started to blow out the actual shoe, and I don't want to do that. So I want to steer clear of some of the ranges that are already light. Like you can see here on her shirt, it's a little too light there, and so I don't want to go blow out that area because it will blow out her shirt and not just the background. But as you can see, if we continue around some of these darker areas, we're totally fine. So now I'll continue and I'll finish up going all the way around and blowing out all of these different areas. So now, as you can see, if you look at the photo, we have an outline kind of around it, and you can see there's kind of some haze and some junk around the outside. So the easiest thing to do here is we're going to grab our polygon lasso tool, and we're going to just do a quick selection kind of close to the body. This is just going to be called like a junk selection. Sometimes people call them junk mats. There's different things that you can call this, but basically we're just making a down and dirty selection because we already took care of the detail, and now we just want to get rid of some of this junk that's on the outside that we in a one fail swoop. So we'll just quickly go through and just plot down a couple different points here around her hair and her head and hands. Okay, so now that we have that selection, now we can do Control-Shift-I, and now we're just going to grab our regular brush tool, set this color to white, and now we'll just scale this up really large, and we'll just paint out all of the other junk in the image. So now we have none of the extra little detail stuff that was going around on the outside. Now, as you can see up here in the hair, there's some stuff in the middle that isn't the right color and that kind of thing. And the easiest way to get rid of some of this stuff is to actually use the burn tool. So we're going to grab the burn tool and we're going to burn the midtones. And we'll set our exposure still at 50, and as you can see, as I start to go over these areas, I start to burn them out and you don't see them anymore, because we want that hair to be solid in the center. Because if wherever the white is in the image, it's going to end up being transparent, and wherever black is, it's going to be opaque, or you can't see through it. So we want to go through and get rid of some of this stuff in the hair in the middle and kind of just mess around with these inner areas, and that's starting to look a lot better. And if we want to, we can go in and do highlights as well and go over some of these zones and kind of dim up some of the highlights. But we're going to go back to midtones, and now we're going to go down to this scarf, because this scarf has some details in it that we want to keep on the outside, but again in the inside we don't. So we'll do a little bit of the mid-tone range here, and then we'll actually switch over to our highlights and do our highlight range, so that we can get rid of some of this highlight stuff so that we don't lose these inner parts of the scarf. If you wanted to, you could switch back over to your brush tool, and with a black brush you could just draw, and that was the wrong color, that was white. We'll hit X to switch our foreground and background color, and then we'll draw with our black, and we can get rid of some of that center stuff as well. But on some of this outside stuff, we actually want a little bit of transparency, and so it's easier to use the burn tool, because if I'm burning highlight or shadows or midtones only, when I start accidentally touching on some of this outside, we won't actually burn that white area. Unlike if I would draw there, you'll see a big black mark. But if I would take my burn tool and set it to shadows and draw out here, you would see nothing. But on here, you can see how it dims it up. So that's kind of the nice part about using the burn tool. And again, you know, you could see how some of this stuff starts coming back in. So we'll just switch back over to our dodge tool, and we'll just dodge out that area again. And so it's looking pretty nice. So we'll go over to this side and quickly finish up this scarf here. So we'll again go back over to our burn, set it to shadows, and just burn up this outside edge so that looks real nice. And then again, we'll go back over to our dodge tool, and we'll make sure this area here is nice and see-through. So now we're going to add in another technique that we already covered when we did the car. There are some really good lines on this person that we can follow with the pen tool. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go through with the pen tool and plot out points around her entire figure. Now we don't need to worry about the hair, and we don't need to worry about the scarf, we just need to worry about the outline of the body. And even the pants we don't really need to worry about too much, because that outside line is still good. So we just need to worry about the shoes, and you can see on the arms here some things are a little bit light. And if you're having a hard time like on the top of the hand, like where is the top of the hand there, you can turn back on your RGB if you wanted to, and start and use your pen tool on that to make sure you're getting your selection. So again, we'll grab our pen tool, and we'll just start up here on her shirt in this area where it's kind of light, and we'll just plot down a point. And then we'll start with our pen tool, and we'll start laying down points and getting this outline looking a lot nicer. And again, you'll see right here, I'm going to skip the scarf and not worry about that, because that's already taken care of. We already have the color range there. And here we have a bunch of black, and so we don't need to worry about having that perfect. But as soon as we get back out into the wide open, we need to make sure it's okay. So now I'm going to go through and finish up this path, and then I'll show you what to do next. So now, as you can see, I have that whole path finished, and now we're going to do the same thing we did before. I'm going to grab this path, I'm going to hit the load path as selection, and then I'm going to go back over to the channels, and on my blue copy, I'm going to take my brush tool with my black color selected, scale up my brush a bit, and I'm just going to draw in all of this extra area. And this will finish off our person here. So now we have this nice, whoops, load in that selection and get that shoe there at the end too. So now we have this nice grayscale version of the person, and then we can just control click on that layer, and it will select that selection. And now we can click back on RGB, go back to our layers palette. I'm just going to duplicate this just so we have an extra just in case something would go wrong. But we'll do our layer mask, and as you can see, it cut her out. So we want to inverse our selection, so Control-Shift-I, and then we'll do our add layer mask again, and you can see the entire background's gone. And if you look up here in the hair, you can see that there's really great detail going on. You really got a good selection. There's some transparency going on, and the rest of the figure is totally taken care of, and it all looks really nice. Now, the reason over and over again I used layer masks is because what happens if something doesn't totally look right? Like, we got some weird transparency going on here, so we need to get that back into the image. So we'll bring our brush size down and we'll click on our layer mask, and now we can just draw in what we missed. So I'll switch back over to white, and I'll just start drawing, and I'm actually drawing back in. I'm unmasking some of this area that was already masked. So we can add in some details that were missed, and this is a great way that you can go in post doing this and clean up some of your selection. So those are a couple different ways that you can pull something out of an image. Now, one other tool that they include inside Photoshop is the extract tool, and this does the exact same thing we did right here, but it does it a lot faster. It also does it a lot less accurate. So we'll quickly show you how to do that. And this really won't take too much time at all. So we will go up to filter, and we'll go down to extract, and we're going to grab our Sharpie, and this we need to use to outline all of our edges. So we'll quickly go through and we'll just do a real rough outline of what we want to keep in the image. Now, I'm doing this really rough. I probably should make my brush a little bit bigger for how rough this edge is going to be, because I'm going to just try do this real fast and show you kind of the effect that you'll get. Because even if I would do this a lot smoother, now this is where you get into weird issues with this hair, because I don't know how the extract filter is going to actually handle this here. So we're just going to kind of go around and select all the stuff that we want to keep. And basically you want half and half. Half of what you want to keep and half of what you want to get rid of. So we got our arms here and our fingertips. And in the end, you will see our final effect. So as you can see, I got my really rough outline there. It's really rough. Now we're going to grab our paint bucket and fill in all the areas we for sure want to keep. And then we'll hit preview. And this is going to preview what it will actually do to our image. Now you can see it's done a pretty good job on some of these areas. You know, we got a little transparency here and there. But then when you start looking at this hair, it starts to get all sorts of crazy. Our hands being deleted and our scarf's all sorts of funny. And what you can do, if we hit OK, what I do, I always make an extra layer so I can select that layer and then apply it to the layer below as a layer mask. So I can go back in and non-destructively edit it, because the extract tool is destructive. It will delete those areas of your image and not mask them out. So make sure you use a layer mask or have an extra version of that layer, so after you use the extract tool you can go inside there. But I would suggest doing some of this a little bit more manually if you have the time, especially if this is going to be the main graphic for a series or something like that. So hopefully this gives you a better step on how to pull images out of images so that you can use them in other things. This week's freebie is a fall worship loop for your gatherings or services or youth ministries or wherever you use background loops, basically. So this is going to be in high definition as well as wide or full screen 800 by 600 church definition. So this is a little loop that we shot outside, so you can check that out on the website. Make sure to download that in your favorite format of MPEG-4 or WMV, whichever Mac or Windows, basically whichever platform you're on. So check out that worship loop and add it to your arsenal. We wanted to say thank you to our sponsors of WorshipHouseMedia.com, resources for the creative church. You can head over to their website and check out all of the great products there and find some great videos, and make sure to get 25% off your order by using the promo code of CMD TV1. Also, make sure to check out the blog and the freebies, as well as the Worship House Media podcast, and check out all of the crazy antics that Kent and Dale are up to every single week. Next is our newest sponsor, which is DansInkandToner.com. Now, if you didn't hear about it last week, Dan's Ink and Toner is a wholesale toner business to help save you money in your church. Now, Dan provides a wholesale toner, and you can sign up for his program by going to dansinkandtoner.com/wholesale. And for the first 3 months, you'll get a free trial of the wholesale program, in which you can go online and order toner, get it at wholesale cost with free shipping. So you're getting at-cost toner. And we actually use Dan's toner at Watermark, the church that I work at here in Michigan. And we get all of our toner. He basically cut our toner budget in half, and it's so great to have that budget item cut down, because it's not something you really want to be wasting a bunch of money on if you don't have to. So make sure to go check this out. If anything, for 3 months, go try it out, see how the toner works, and you'll be helping me out as well as yourself by cutting your budget down if you're not already getting your toner from somebody for wholesale. Because especially if you're going over to Staples or Home Office Depot or any of those stores to get your toner, you're paying most likely double or more than what you're going to pay from Dan. So make sure to check out dansinkandtoner.com/wholesale and mention ChurchMediaDesign.tv to get that 3-month free trial. So this week's inspiration comes in form of, well, hard conversations. If you go to any conferences like the Willow Creek Summit, or if you're at Catalyst or any of these places, a lot of times you get inspired and you end up having a lot deeper conversations about what you're doing in your church. And especially with the economy the way it is, and a lot of different things that are going in a lot of different people's churches, you end up having conversations about why you believe what you believe and why your church is doing what they're doing. And I really want to encourage you guys to have these conversations. We don't want to just be creating media and sending out postcards and making series graphics and all this kind of stuff so a bunch of people can come sit in a room and feel better about themselves. We're here to leverage people for the kingdom of Christ. And we want to make sure that that kingdom is expanding and not just contracting and sitting in a room and slowly dying together. So I just really want to encourage you guys to remember the heart behind what we're doing. And I also want to say thank you for what you're doing. A lot of times I know you guys are underappreciated in your churches for what you do on a weekly basis. And I personally want to say thank you for the way that you're leveraging your gifts and talents for the kingdom of God. And if there's ever a moment that you feel like, man, I just feel beat up and no one understands me and all that kind of stuff, send me an email, get in touch with me, find my phone number, hit me up on Skype, and we'll talk, man. I really want to encourage you guys and let you know that you are appreciated in what you're doing. So just be filled up, know what you guys are doing is important, and remember why you're doing this, because that's the most important reason. And lastly, of course, we have the green screen contest going on right now. So go over to the website, check out the green screen episode in the episode listings or in your podcast feed. You'll see CMD green screen contest, and you'll find out all the information about the contest. But basically, make a commercial promoting the show, and it will be used as promotion on websites in the upcoming year when we have a bunch of big changes that will be rolling out. Good big changes, of course. And if your video wins, which there's not a ton of people right now submitting, so you have a really good chance of winning a green screen. So you got really good odds in this contest. You'll win a free green screen and a gift card to Home Depot so you can buy the pipe to make, or the pipe to actually put it together. We're going to sew it and give you the plans and the whole 9 yards. It'll be great. So make sure to sign up for the contest and do that. It's going to end right around the new year, right before Christmas. So make sure you guys sign up and do that. So as for me and the 3 wise men and Jesus, we're saying, see you later. dun, 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 dun.